Okay, we are going to go to the last few Psukim of Sefer Yehoshua. Moshe Rabbeinu, before P'tirosai, as we said, gave Klal Yisrael a teichecho and a musar. Steht in Sifri at the end of Parshas V'zeis HaBrocho, Kemoisha ata moitze berav ata moitze betalmid, and the same hanhoge that Moshe had b'yom P'tirosai to give a teichecho to Klal Yisrael, so too Yeshua Binu. Let's go to Pasuk Yutes. Vayomer Yehoshua el ha'am lo yisuchlu la'avoid es Hashem ki Elokim kedoshim hu el kano hu lo yiso lepishachem v'lachateisechem ki sazvu es Hashem v'avadetem Elohei nechor v'shov v'heiro lochem v'chilo eschem asher acharei asher heitiv lochem. Yeshua has a moedik pachad that Klal Yisrael is going to be Oved Avodah Zarah. And the truth of the matter, Bimei Yecheskel, later on, when Klal Yisrael started dining Avodah Zarah, states, Ro Yehoshua she'asidin le'arer bimei Yecheskel v'lo imani kagoyim lefichach ich bid aleim achshov ulekach hushev le bimei Yecheskel v'oila al ruchem le'isiyeh chayanim lo b'yad chazoke kvar kibaltem aleichem bimei Yehoshua ולא יסיימו מה שקיבלנו עלינו בימי מוישה כדי להיכנס לאורץ עשינו. הרי בימי ישוע כבר נכנסתם וקיבלתם. Moshe's teichecho prior to his p'tira was Klal Yisrael obgilan, that it means that the reason why he said the teichecho is in order to go to Eretz Yisrael, you have to be stopping over the Zorah, no intermarriages, etc., etc. Yehoshua saw beruach kodshay b'yom p'tirose. By the way, we are holding now Chavov Nisan, the Yortzeit of Yehoshua, the day of his P'tira, and he's giving them this Musar with the Orein HaKodesh he brought from Mishkan Shiloi to Shechem. And this is all he's telling him in Shechem. He says, I see that Avodah Zarah is down time tunnel, I see it's coming. Vayomer ha'omel Yehoshua loi ki es Hashem na'avoid. Some people hang up such zettlach in the house. Loi ki es Hashem na'avoid, says a zettel. The Makor is right here by Yehoshua. Lo ki es Hashem na'avoid. This is a promise Klal Yisrael is saying that we are not going to be Oved Avodah Zarah. Vayomer Yehoshua elam eidim atem bochem ki atem bechartem lochem es Hashem la'avoid oisoi vayomru eidim. Nems Kabbalah say this. Somebody in the shtickle that he's telling him you are the eidim by yourself. And they say yes, we are eidim. Ve'ato osiru es Elohei aneich asher bekirbeichem והטו אס לבבכם השם אלוקי ישראל ויאמרו עמל יהושע אס השם אלוהינו נעבוד ובקולו נשמע ויכרוס יהושע בריס להם ביום ההוא וישם לו חוק ומשפט בשכם. Then the pasuk finishes off, and that's what I'd like to talk about today. ויכתוב יהושע אס הדבורים האלה בספר תורת אלוקים Vayikoch even gedoylo vayekimeo shom tachas ho'elo asher b'mikdash Hashem. Asher b'mikdash Hashem is no mikdash. Just means he put a stone, he wrote Vayichtov Yehoshua es advorim ho'ele b'sefer teiras elikim. He's writing, he's making a bris. They all say the eidim, the testimony, and Yehoshua writes it down b'sefer teiras elikim. What does it mean b'sefer teiras elikim? And then he takes the Evan and he puts it there. Asher b'mikdash Hashem, learn the Rishonim, Rashi and all the Rishonim, next to the Oren HaKodesh, the Oren HaBris, which was brought from Mishkan Shiloi to here. Comes again Rashi, and you have it right here in your first page. Comes again Rashi. Vayichtov Yehoshua tirgum yoinason, uksav Yehoshua es pisgamoi ho'elin, V'atzni'uin b'sefer oiraiso de Hashem. Okay. ובמסכת מקויס נחלקו בו המרואים. אחד אומר לשמונה פסוקים ויומוס מוישה לעיני כל ישראל, שהרי ספר תורה חוסר והשלימוי, ואחד אומר פרשה זו של אורי מקלט כוסף, בספרוי כמו שהיו כתובים בספר התורה. Rashi starts off with a Targum. Targum says, Yas Pisgam of these events, these chukim or mishpotim, he's writing. Ve'atzniun, Rashi, the Targum is not saying that he's writing in Sefer Torah. In the Pasuk, if you look at the Pasuk, Pshat, the Pasuk, Vayichtov Yehoshua es hadvorim o'ele be'Sefer Torah Salikim. Targum is Meshani, he doesn't understand what is he writing be'Sefer Torah Salikim. According to the Pasuk, Pshat, and the Targum, he wrote down this bris that were mekabel upon themselves not to be able to be Zorah. He took a zettel and he put it inside the Sefer Torah Salikim, parked it next to the Evan, next to the Eilo, right by the Oren Bris Hashem. This is how the Targum works. Rashi, the Pasuk doesn't say that. The Pasuk says, Vayichtoi beSefer Torah Salikim. Rashi starts with the Targum, and he goes, sends us to the Maseches Makes. Wo steht Nesugi Maseches Makes? Maseches Makes. Steht in the Gemara. Look at the Gemara. You have the Gemara Makes. So the Gemara Vayichtoi Yehoshua es hadvorim o'ele beSefer Torah Salikim pliga Rab Yudah Rab Nechemia. Chad omar shmoino psukim v'chad omar orei miklot. Bishlam olamand omar ches psukim aynu d'ksiv beSefer Torah Salikim. Elo olamand omar orei miklot mai beSefer Torah Salikim. And for the Gemara hochikoma vayichtov Yehoshua besifroi es hadvorim o'ele aksuvim beSefer Torah Salikim. So this woman, the Omer says, we know that the Parsha, Gemara says the Parsha of Orimiklot was said by Moshe Rabbeinu, was Chazor v'Nishnes by Yeshua. The Gemara says, why do you have to Chazor it over? But Yeshua is writing, according to the man, the Omer Vayichtov, Gleich do Vayichtov Yeshua, es advorim mo'ela aksuvim b'Sefer Torah Salikim. One Baba Basra says Yeshua wrote Sefer, in a minute we'll say, but the first thing Yeshua was the Mechaber of Sefer Yeshua. He was the one who wrote. So the Psukim beforehand that we're talking about, the Afroshas Ori Miklot, was written by Yom Ptirosei. This is one man the Omer. Vayichtov v'osep smit namol Yeshua. 5 minutes. He's making a bris with Klal Yisrael. 5 minutes before Yeshua Ptire, he doesn't have any vinegar. It's tone shiur b'fnei atzmoi. Why is the parish of Ori Miklot meyuchad? Yeshua should designate his time right before his death. He's writing it right here. There's a Maral, there's a Marsho. We're not going to be Ma'ir Chadibur, and we'd like to talk about the other Mandoma. The other Mandoma says, Shmone Psukim Sh'BeTora. You know, what's Shmone Psukim Sh'BeTora? Right? The Gemara in Baba Basra. Take a look at the Gemara in Baba Basra. The Gemara in Baba Basra, steht da say, Omar Mar. Look at the Gemara. Yehoshua kosav sifroi v'shmoine psukim shebatoiro. Tano kemando omar shmoine psukim shebatoiro Yehoshua kosvoi. The Tanya, if you look in Parshas V'zeis HaBracha, the last 8 psukim begin with the pasuk Vayomos shom Moshe eved Hashem. For the more Akashe, efsho Moshe mes v'kosav Vayomos shom Moshe. How could Moshe Rabbeinu write in the Torah Vayomos shom Moshe and he died? I mean, Moshe Rabbeinu can't write. If he died, he can write. If he writes, he can die. Elo ad kan kosav Moshe, mikan vo'elach kosav Yehoshua. Divrei Rabbi Yeshua ve'amr Rabbi Nechemia. Comes along the Gemara with a fascinating teretz that the Torah ended before the last 8 psukim. Moshe Rabbeinu completed the Torah till the pasuk Vayomos shom Moshe eved Hashem. Who wrote the last 8 psukim of the Torah? Yeshua bin Nun is the one who writes Vayomos shom Moshe. Please note, the last 8 psukim of the Torah are not written by Moshe, but are written by Yeshua bin Nun. This is 2 mandrom. This is Rabbi Yeshua ve'amr le Rabbi Nechemia. Omar le Rab Shimon efshel Sefer Torah choser rois achas v'ksiv l'koyach haSefer HaTorah hazeh. It says before l'koyach haSefer HaTorah hazeh Moshe Rabbeinu took the Sefer Torah kosav Sefer Torah b'yoyim Moshe and he gave it to Bnei Levi Chazal Shtet, he wrote 13 Sefer Torahs, but the Sefer Torah that he gave to Bnei Levi, it says, Moshe vayomer Moshe al Bnei Levi, lokoyach es Sefer HaTorah hazeh. Please take this Sefer Torah. So, Sefer Torah choser o isachas. If a Sefer Torah would be choser o isachas, Moshe Rabbeinu would never ever call it, Sefer HaTorah hazeh. So you're telling me that the last 8 Psukim in the Torah was choser, and Yeshua wrote it when? Hayom Shom, he's talking about, he wrote it later, after Moshe Rabbeinu died. Yeshua completed the Torah. So how does Moshe Rabbeinu call it Lekoyach Sefer HaTorah hazeh? Elo zokt Rabbi Shimon, Ad kan HaKadosh Baruch Hu oimer, u'Moshe oimer v'koisev. Mikan vo'eloch HaKadosh Baruch Hu oimer, u'Moshe kosev bedema. כמו שנאמר, ויאמר להם ברוך, מפי יקורא אלי את כל הדברים האלה, ואני כוסף על הספר בדיו. This man, the Omar, Rab Shimon, cannot understand that the Shmone Psukim should be written by Yeshua. He says no. Until the Pasuk Vayomer Shom Moshe, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Oimer, we'll soon see Pshat. HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe, Moshe Oimer v'Kosef. Moshe is Oimer and Kosef. Mikam vo'eloch, from here onwards, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Oimer, Moshe Kosef bedema. So what does it mean, Moshe Kosef bedema? Posh the Pshat, the Rishonim learn. Moshe Rabbeinu was crying, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was saying, Vayomer Shom Moshe, Ki'ilu and Nevuah about his forthcoming death. So from now on, Moshe Rabbeinu writes the Psukim. He completed the Sefer Torah, but he didn't do it with dioy, with tint. He did it with dema, with his tears. Comes again the Maral, fragt Takashe, Einef Nasora, Aloch al Moshe Messiah, you have to write with dioy. You can't write with tears. A, it's not dioy. Beis is not shocher oimed. Zwei Aloch al Moshe Messiah. That was ein dioy, not oimed. What is Moshe Kosef bedema? But Pasha to Pshat the Rishonim learn Moshe Kosef bedema. Moshe takes his tears. The Kodesh Baruch Hu says, "Vayomer Shom Moshe." He's right. It's a nevuah on the forthcoming death, which is going to happen in an hour or so, and he's writing with tears. So Lokoyach Sefer HaTorah hazeh. It's not Sefer Torah choser. Why? Because the Ma'aseh it's written, but the Sefer Torah is not written with a dioy, but it's written with a dem. So what's the teretz? Vayomer Shom Moshe. What is the teretz Vayomer Shom Moshe? Yes, the Kash. Rab Shimon said, "Efshar Moshe Chai, Moshe Meis," and he writes Vayomer Shom Moshe. I study that to write bedema, which means keilu. I'm saying the posh the pshat of the Rishonim in Rashi. It's in Kama v'Kama Masechtas. It's in Menochas. It's in Bava Basra. It's Bekama Mekoyim B'Shas. Keilu that Moshe Rabbeinu to write betint Vayomer Shom Moshe, it's a sheker. Moshe is not going to write a sheker. But to write with dmois as a nevuah, doesn't like the Moshe could write b'dmois. We will soon. I hope we'll walk out of here tonight with a crystal ball. To write bedema, to write b'dmois, Moshe could write Vayomer Shom Moshe because it's not really right. Because Baruch Hu told me you're about to die, and he's writing it bedema. So Mimele, such a thing could be written by Moshe Rabbeinu. Zog the Gemara weiter. Keman az le'od Omar Rab Shuba Rab Omar Rab Gidl Omar Rav Shmoine Psukim Sh'BeTora Yochid Koire Oisom Neime Rabbi Yehudahi v'Doloike Rabbi Shimon. It says these halacha Shmoine Psukim Sh'BeTora, the last 8 Psukim Yochid Koire Oisom. These are 5 way machlekes rishonim. What does Yochid Koire Oisom? Let's say Rashi and Taisus, they learn that you give it all to one person. You cannot divide it and give 4 Psukim to one and 4 Psukim to other. The Rambam learns that you could read it b'Yochid. If we'll soon see, the Rambam says that if there's no asor in the Besmedrash, the last 8 Psukim there's no din of a me, and the Ravid schreit chayvekam in the Yerushalmi steht nicht, dass kann nicht sein, and the Ravid doesn't understand. The Ravid says a word v'atzibur eichon holchu. One of the things, my memories from Rabbi Sheber's shiur v'atzibur eichon holchu v'ud the Eilam antlofen. The Eilam used to come. There was no shvache shiur. He used to say v'atzibur eichon holchu. That's the Ravid's lashon, and the Pashto Pshat in the Ravid means. Because if you didn't have in the beginning of Kriyas HaTorah 10 people, you can't read Kriyas HaTorah Dorosh B'Kedusha. And if you started, the halach is Yischil Goybrim, every Dorosh B'Kedusha, if you started and somebody walked in the middle, it's Goybrim. For the Ravid, V'atzibur, der Tzibur was given free by Shvi, Eichel Olchu. If they weren't there, you couldn't read it. And if they were there, so who cares? Even by regular Kaddish and Kedusha, the halach is Yischil Goybrim. That's the Pasuk Pshat in the Ravid. The pshat in yochid koire oisam, if it means you don't give it to two people, you give it to one, or it means that you don't need asora anoshim, you can even do it b'yichidis, whatever it is. Or b'sedo azah alocha that Shmone Psukim the nishtanu the din kriya from Shmone Psukim the din kriya from the rest of Kriyas HaTorah. So Mokiman Azla, who does it go to? Does it go according to Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Nechemia, or does it go according to Rabbi Shimon? So the Gemara behechach he goes according to Rabbi Yehuda. Why? Because Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Nechemia say that what? That Yeshua wrote it. No, if Yeshua wrote it, it's not azaz so Torah that's mechayev all the dinim of a regular Kriyas HaTorah. Since it's written by Yeshua, it's nechois darga, and therefore it has a din, or whatever the pshat in yochid koira oisam, the halach is yochid koira oisam. As is the Gemara. So the Gemara name. Afilu teim Rab Shimon, really it could go even according to Rab Shimon. Why is it man ishtana alayla azeh? Oil ve'ishtane. Since it was nishtane in a way that it wasn't written, says Rashi in Menachos, it wasn't written b'dyoy, but was written b'dema. So such a thing was says Mishune, Mimele, you don't need any more yochid. You could have, you don't need the tzibur, you can have halach of yochid koyres. Ad kan the Gemara. You know, what's the teretz? Lamaise, Rab Shimon fekta chaguta kashe. You have Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says that Yeshua was the one who wrote it. So what's the lokech Sefer Yehoshua? Rabbi Yehuda didn't say a teretz. Rabbi Yehuda never said a teretz. Rabbi Shimon, what is? He asked him a kasha. If it's choser or isachas, Moshe wouldn't write. How does Moshe say lokech Sefer Yehoshua? That's question number one. And number two, what does really mean oil v'ishtane ishtane? Stam avod v'bald. According to the second, the Gemara says afilu teime Rab Shimon. Rab Shimon holds that be'emes Moshe did write it. For some reason or another, this halach of yochid koyros applies because it's written b'dema. The fact that it was written b'dema and not b'dyoy to the halach of yochid koyros and advorim tzrichim pirush bil. I want to go with here from you. Okay, the Gemara Megillah. Take a look at the Gemara Megillah in reference number 3. V'ro'isi ani Daniel levad yasamare ve'anoshim asher yu imi lo'ro esamachane aval charodo gdoilo noflo aleim va'yivrichu beheichove. Zog the Gemara ma'ininu anoshim Omar Rav Yirmiyah v'item Rav Chia barabe ze Chagai Zecharye u'Malachi. Inu adifu minei, ve'iu adifu minayu. Inu adifu minei, de inu neviei, ve'ihu lav novi. Daniel says that Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi have a preference over me, because they have a din of a novi, and I'm not a novi. Daniel is not really a novi. Zogt Rashi, look at Rashi. De inu neviu shenisnabel Yisrael b'shlichusa shel mokim. Daniel, whatever he was told, he was never nishtalach liYisrael, and no nevuah was a nishtalach liYisrael. So he's saying they are better than me. Daniel wrote Sefer Daniel. He doesn't have a din of a navi. Why? Because a navi means you have to go with the shlichus, with a message to Klaus. So Baruch sent you to say divrei nevuah. Shum nevuah, Rashi says, is become a mekomis b'shas that Daniel should have a din of a navi because he was not nishtalach to any nevuah to say. Take a look at the second page that we had today added on. I'd like to read with you the second page. This is from Ksovim, from the Bris Horav, and I'm giving it, it's a little bit abbreviated, but I would like to learn with you the shtickle inside. Look, there's zwei shtickle here, before we move on to the Goyen, which is Divrei Elokim Chaim. Hinei efshel lefarish, the achiluk, the bekol ateire kulo hoyo Moshe koisev, ma shene'emar lo k'moy kol novi, shehoyo anovi koisev nevuosei. V'zeh apirush, Moshe oimer v'koisev, haynu shehoyo oimro tchilo, mishum dehoyo novi al zeh. V'achar kach koisev ma'achar shenisno lo. Zog the Bris Horav, Kol HaTorah Kula, really the Torah Kula has a dual message. Number one, every pasuk in the Torah, every word in the Torah was given to Moshe b'Torah's nevuah to be said. Moshe is saying the nevuah. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe lemer. The words Vayomer Hashem el Moshe lemer is a nevuah leheomer, like any other nevuah leheomer. Later, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, take this nevuah which I told you and inscribe it in a sefer. So kol HaTorah kula HaKadosh Baruch Hu oimer u'Moshe oimer v'koisev. HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him to repeat after him anything he says, and Moshe says it, and it's vivert nevuah, and now he's writing the nevuah b'ksav. Aval Shmone Psukim hoya HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moshe koisev. The Hainu show Yokoisev mipi HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'lo yehoya Moshe anovi al zeh elo Yokoisev ma shetzivu HaKadosh Baruch Hu lichtov. In other words, Vayomel shel Moshe Eved Hashem, when he said, as soon as he got to the post of Vayomel shel Moshe, Moshe Rabbeinu no longer said the nevuah b'Torah's nevuah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu instructed him, whatever I'm telling you right now, you write it down without saying it. Moshe Rabbeinu from the pasuk Vayomel shel Moshe is a nevuah li'kosev, it's not nevuah le'omer. Okay? V'zeu ma shemei mi Baruch ben Neria, shoya ha'kosev, afal pi shelo yoya novi az, ki'im b'seif yomov. When Baruch ben Neria wrote Chalokim for Sefer Yirmiyahu, at that time, Baruch ben Neria was not crowned. Seif Yomov, the last 2 years, Machlekes training, how long before his ptir, he became a Novi. But the time that he wrote this Nevuos of Yirmiyahu, the Baruch didn't have a din Novi yet. Ve'anovi al Megillas Eicho, oyo Yirmiyahu v'tzivu leBaruch lichtov, ve'oyo koisem mipi Yirmiyahu. The whole Megillah Eicho we read Tisha B'Av by night, Eicho Yashva Badod. Yirmiyahu is saying to Baruch, and Baruch is writing it even though Baruch at that time didn't have a din of a Novi. It's not a nevuah shenitna le'omer. Given the koisev, given the schreiber. Achanami or Moshe koisev hashmoy in the Psukim pi HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'lo yehod Novi azeh. It's a veldish Torah from the Briskerov that the whole Torah kol HaTorah kula, Moshe said it had a din of a nevuah. It's not stam adin for schreiben Torah. The Torah kula was given to Moshe b'Torah's nevuah. Then Moshe was koisev, Moshe was oimer. He said it. It had a din of the nevuah. Alle dinim from the nevuah is chal prior to Moshe's ksiva when he wrote the Sefer Torah, and then when Moshe Rabbeinu wrote it, it became Torah. Vehine moran agrach omar. Take a look inside. Achiluk benevim liksuvim. L'chuk d'shotz n'shavot manichim zelze v'imken b'may chalukim en mikra ze nevim v'ze ksuvim. You know, you buy an art scroll set. You have Tanakh, you have Torah, then you have Nevim, then you have Ksuvim. Nach is Nevim, Ksuvim. Part of it is called Nevim, a part of Ksuvim. Mishlei, Tehillim, Iyov is, Chomesh Megillas is Ksuvim. Yirmiyahu, Yeshayahu, Yecheskel, Yeshua, Sheftim, Shmuel, Malachim is Nevim. Why is one called Nevim and one is called Ksuvim? In Kedusha, there is no halacha, there's no difference in the Kedusha of Nevim and Ksuvim. Shteta often at Teseftet, more brings it down. Amenichim Ksuvim al gabe Nevim, Nevim al gabe Ksuvim. Something which is Kedusha Yisrael Yoyna, you're not allowed to put Nevim on top of Torah. You're not allowed to put Ksuvim on top of Torah, but you're allowed to put Ksuvim on top of Nevim. So Vaistais in the strength of the Kedusha, Nevim and Ksuvim are totally equal. So why is one called Nevim and one called Ksuvim? It's a famous shtickle Torah from Reb Chaim. Why is Nevim called Nevim and Ksuvim called Ksuvim? V'zoma the Nevim aynu the ne'emal lenovi she'yomar hanevu al peh v'achar kach hanovi koisev nevu oseh she'ne'emal lo al peh. V'ksuvim ne'emal lenovi she'ichtav hoisev v'achar kach ikro miksev atav nevu azu. He says the difference is Nevim, the nevuah was given to the Navi to say it. And that becomes a nevuah. And then he says, take all the nevuah which I told you to say and write it down. Ksuvim is fakert. He says, write down what I'm telling you. And after you write down what I'm telling you, read mitoch haksav. Ksuvim means you read mitoch haksav. Nevim is the other way around. You're given the nevuah to be said, and then you write down biksav whatever the nevuah was given over to say. That's the chilik. Chaim is a gracious, the kultur big nafkeminis between Nevim and Ksuvim. Vehine, take a look at the next paragraph. Ke'ein zeh ve'achiluk ben Shmone psuk b'Torah l'kol shekol ha'Torah kulo nitnu l'Moshe tchilo v'achar kach nichtevo. Ma she'eken ela Shmone psukim nehemu lo li'kosev b'pi HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Reb Chaim comes along and makes a shtickle Torah that the whole Torah kula has a din of nevuah, and the Torah was written as writing over a nevuah. Shmone Psukim was never given B'Torah's nevuah. Moshe can't write Yomas Moshe. He can't say it. He can't say there's no such a thing. He just says, write down what I'm dictating to you. All you are. Ulam kol zeh inicha im nema. The kol Torah kulo oyo kimo ksivas neviim. Aber ein Rambam be'Akdoma. The Ramban in Akdoma al Torah. Mashma mitvov da Torah nema b'Moshe l'koisev. Moshe koisev in Pia Kodesh Baruch Hu kimo Baruch Piyirmi. Aber lo Moshe koisev ashenid lo kimo anovi shekosim. Ken ein shuv ein chilu b'Shmone Psukim l'kol Torah. Ramban says beferish nicht das. Ramban says the Kol Kula was given over to Moshe to write, and Moshe used to write the Girsev Moshe Oimer v'Koisev. In some form it does appear, in some form it doesn't appear. It says the Kodesh Baruch Hu Oimer u'Moshe Koisev. Some Girse is Moshe Oimer v'Koisev. That's the machlekes. The Ramban had the Girse Moshe Koisev. Moshe never was said over, say over the Torah B'Torah's Nevuah. L'chatchila was given to be written. If the Chatchil was given to read, we come back to square one. What's the chil between Shmone and Psukim? Zogt Reb Chaim. Udlam nira de bezel yochol. The kol haTorah kulo Moshe oimer v'gam oyo koisim pi HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Aber b'Shmone Psukim alalo Moshe koisim pi HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'lo oimer aynu shelo ne'emo lokim li'kosiv. Ze הפירוש שמוישה oimer aynu שנינו לTorah ללומדו v'gam oyo koisim. אבל ב'Shmone Psukim eile אם לא היה oimer דlo ניתנה לו ללומדו קים He's saying another shtickle. Really, it's not a din to say it over B'Torah's nevuah, but Torah was given to him B'Torah's limud. So all the Kol HaTorah Kula was given to him B'Torah's limud, and he used to learn it. Oimer means he was learning it, not that there was B'din nevuah. And the ksiva was a ksiva HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him to write, but there's a din to limud of Torah, and then there's a din ksivas HaTorah. Shmone Psukim was never a din limud. Torah was only a din to write the Torah. Look at this. Okay. V'hine yesh la'ayin. Look at the shtickle Torah. Biskarov is a shtickle Torah. Chapel. Mosai na'asu Shmone Psukim bichlal HaTorah bish'as ksivosom or acharei ptirosoi. When does these Shmone Psukim become part of Torah? When they was written, or only after Moshe died? In other words, the Kodesh Baruch Hu tells Moshe to write. Moshe writes it. He writes future Vayomas Shal Moshe as a nevuah. Kodesh Baruch Hu says he's going to die. When does it become a part of Torah? Ve'ine im neime de acha ptirosa shel Moshe nasu Torah ken yishleima de ze achilik b'Shmone Psukim l'kol HaTorah. The Kol HaTorah Kula became Torah only right as soon as it's given. This Shmone Psukim, it's a post-dated check. Because Moshe writes it, but it doesn't become part of Torah until Moshe Rabbeinu, Achab Tirosa Shel Moshe Rabbeinu. The whole thing here is a Weltstikel Torah from the Reb Chaim and the Briskerov. Okay? V'hina Aramam Kosev Hilchos Tefillah Shmone Psukim Shebetzei B'Torah Mutar Likoyse B'Saknez V'Pochas Ma'asoro. Okay? Let's skip the whole parenthesis. V'af al pi she'akol Torah u'Moshe mipi ha'gvura amorom. Okay? Hoyul v'mashmom shem achar mitas Moshe הרי נשתנו, ולפיכך מותר ליוחד לקרוא איסם, ונראה דביאור מה שכוסף אוהל משמון, היינו דדינן כן שנאמרו לאחר מיסס מוישה, דאז נעשו סתיר ולא יקודם כסיבוסם, ומשומחו נשתנו לצורכים בזה. He's medayek from the Lashon Rambam that really the 8 Psukim did not become part of Torah until Moshe Rabbeinu died. ולפי זה נמצא, שגם רב שמעון מוידל סבורס רבי יהודו, אפשר מוישה חי וכוסף היומס. רב שמעון סובר שהסבור הזוך לא שייך רק על דין אמירו, שכיוון שהוא חי לא שייך שיומה, אבל כסיב שייך על זה. וראיוסו שאפשר שהתורה חוסר אחת, וכסיב לוקח סבב התורה הזה. I would like to read with you now, we don't have that much time, I would like to read with you right now a shtikol Torah from the Goyen, which is Dovo Niflo B'Yoser, which how the Goyen learns Pshat in this whole Sugya Sagmoy Baba Basra and the Menachos. Look at the Goyen. Okay, the Goyen state that Akushio Gluyo Lakoil. Look at its reference number 6. Look at the Goyen. This is Pelvik Goyen. This is all Lashon HaGoyen. Akushio Gluyo Lakoil. Eich Yetaretz Rab Shimon, right? Eich yetaretz Rab Shimon es kushes Rab Yehuda. Okay? Alo shoal efshe Moshe chai v'kosav hayom hashem Moshe ari ze mechzik keshike chas v'shol. Umat tiretz Rab Shimon the Moshe koisav bedema. He asked Makasha, how can Moshe Rabbeinu be chai, right, and write Vayomas Moshe? Moshe Rabbeinu is not going to say a sheker in the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu cannot say a sheker in the Torah. Umat tiretz Rab Shimon the Moshe koisav bedema. What's the tiretz koisav bedema? Why is koisav bedema going to be any mile to it? Ve'av shelichoiro tiken Rashi akushi azois ki kol ateire kule omar HaKadosh Baruch Hu kol teva leMoshe v'hu chozav ve'omar kol teva kedei shelo yite v'achar kach kosav. Look how the Goyen learns. The kol ateire kule Moshe was saying over kol teva. He said it over before he wrote it in order not to make a mistake. Ve'ayinu ad vayomas Moshe aval mikam vo'eloch lo hoyo oimer Moshe klal ki hu kesheker achar she'adayin chai. The Goyen learns Pshat in the Rashi. Not everybody learns Pshat in the Rashi. Maybe learns different Pshat in the Rashi. The Goyen learns Pshat in the Rashi that Kol HaTorah Kula HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moshe said it not because the Nevuah mit der ganzen Reb Chaim Shtikol Torah brisket in Torah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said Vayomer Hashem. He says Vayomer Hashem. A Sefer has to say it over, to make sure that what you're writing is not a mistake. So Kol HaTorah Kula Moshe Rabbeinu said over whatever was dictated the Nevuah from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now it's the Nevuah. Stop. Shelo yiyeh toyeh. In order not to write something which is a mistake. This is only until the last 8 Psukim. But from the Pasuk Vayomer Shel Moshe Eved Hashem, Moshe never said it. Because Moshe can is zog sheker. Moshe is alive. How can he write Vayomer Shel Moshe? So Rashi says that Mimele to write is nicht azay shver. Nicht azay shver. In other words, it's a klal over here is a klal for alle lignel sheboilim. Zog sheker is a proste zach. You can't say a sheker. All right, a sheker is something like that. That's how the Goyen learns Pshat Rashi. Omnam zog the Goyen gamze adayin kosher. Ki af belo yamir chalilo l'kdoish Yisrael. Look at the Goyen's lashon. Chalilo l'kdoish Yisrael. Asher nichtav olav l'kom oid novel lichtav sheker af belo yamir. So what's happening over here? What's the teretz? Moshe is not oimer. Rashi says v'kivin shaloi omar. Who cares? He could write it down. What do you mean you can write it down? You're writing a sheker. How can he write Vayomer Shel Moshe? Ve'oid koshe eich omar Rab Yehuda shemikam va'elach kosav Yeshua ve'lo yichoshash klal lekushias Rab Shimon ki v'chi tochesh et kosav teiras Hashem afilo yisachar shelo yadei Moshe aloi mikro molehu zichru teiras Moshe avdi v'im kein shtei adeyas shel Rab Yehuda Rab Shimon kosher havona me'oid. And one man the Omer Yishver, how could he write Vayomas Moshe? Even if Rashi wants to make it a little softer, that he's only writing, Moshe is not going to write a sheker. And the other one is Shver, how could Moshe Rabbeinu say on the Torah that he gives to Bnei Levi, L'koyach Sefer HaTorah Hazeh, were the Torah is Sefer Torah Choser. So, beide Seiten sein kosher. Listen to the Goyen, Such niflo v'nisgov ad me'oid. Nisgov ad me'oid. V'tiretz HaGoyen, this is Talmud HaGro writes, b'shem v'tiretz HaGoyen, ki shneim divrei Elokim Chaim. Beide Sachen, sei the Shitas Rab Shimon, and sei Shitas Rab Yehuda, is divrei Elokim Chaim. Maro marchad ומרו מרחות ולא פליגה. כי לכאורה קושי בדברי הגמרא. מה מקשה על 8 פסוקים האחרונים שבתורה איך נכתבו אם מוישה עדיין חי? על כל התורה כולו נכתבס 2000 שנה. For the Goyen, Torah was written 2,000 years before the world was created. כל התורה כולו. ועדיין לא היו השמיים והאורץ וכל אשר בו ודוי רמבו ודוי רפלוגו ויציאס מצרים ודומיהם. ואיך נכתבו בתורה קודם שהיו באוילם? Torah was, he says, the Kodesh Baruch Hu created the world, istakel be'oraisa, uboro alma. Kodesh Baruch Hu looked at the Torah, and the Torah was a blueprint of the world, istakel be'oraisa, uboro alma. Torah was written 2,000 years prior in the state, 2,000 years of Torah. Torah was written, Moshe Tostov Kufay and Dal Deires, before the world was created. So how could you write in the Torah, Vayashamayim ve'oretz and Mitzrayim and the whole Geschichte, the whole thing? You're writing a future Torah. So the Goyen Hazeh. Omnom zois yadua. Look at the Goyen. Ki kol HaTorah kulo shmoisov shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. והיינו על ידי צירופים של אויסיוס וטבס. ולפני בריאת העולם היה התורה הומון אצל הקדוש ברוך הוא על פי צירופים וסוידס. ולפורש את כל דברי התורה הזויס, ואלה סוידס התורה על פי צירופים, ניתנו ליודעי חן שהם מודיעים אלו לחוכם ומי ובדייתם. Every oisios שנכתבו התורה, it's all tzirufim of the shemas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If you looked in the Torah before the Torah was given, to Klal Yisrael, all you saw is one big jumble of tzirufim Shem HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Goyen, וזה מה שאומרו חז"ל, יודע הוא בצלאל לצרף אויסי שניבו בהם שמיים ואורץ, היא התורה הקדושה שהיו רק צירופי אויסיוס של שמש הקדוש ברוך הוא. The whole Torah was tziruf oisios of Shemesh HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yoidei chen, the Goyen says, she'em moidim el lechochum, maybe b'dayta, such like B'tzalel ben Uri ben Chul Lamati Yehuda she'yoidei l'tzaref oisios, he could look at the Torah and see this jumble gibberish and make out of it a tziruf from the Mishkan. Me'ato metzurotzim divrei ha'gemora hanal. כי כבונס רבי שמעון לא ישב גם איך שלא יהיה ספר תורה חוסר אפילו הסחס וגם שלא יהיה כשקר. You have two things over here roaming in the background. Either, not to say a sheker, but Vayomas Moshe is still alive, and ספר תורה שנה בחוסר לכך הוא אומר עד כאן הקדוש ברוך הוא אומר ומוישה וכויסב רוצה לומר שאומר מוישה כל טבע וטבע כאשר יקסובה ביודענו בגילוי המצווה. When we look at the Torah, we understand. Open up a Chumash, you can understand the words. It's not gibberish. It's not. I don't have to be a super chacham. Keneged arbor bonim divrei Torah. Afilu she'eino yodea lishul kuk tarayin in Torah. You can look. You can see. Aval mikam vo'eloch lo hoyo yochel lichtov begilui vayomos shel Moshe demechse keshikra. וגם לא יוכל לגמור הכסיבה על ידי ישוע, כי אפשר שספר תורה יהיה חוסר ישחס. Can do both. You cannot do sai, you cannot write something kisheker, even writing sheker. The Goyen is not buying the thing that writing sheker is downgraded in the Ilchish Korim. You can't. ולכן הוא אומר, עד כאן הקדוש ברוך הוא אומר, מוישה אומר וכויסב, Moshe was writing kol teva and teva when giving over the Torah. What was Torah? What was Kabbalah Satorah? What was Moshe Rabbeinu giving the Torah? He took the tzirufim of the Oisios, he made it into words, into language, not gibberish. You don't have to be Chocham HaRozim, you don't have to be B'tzal, Yodel, the Tzarav Kol Oisios. You could just take and read the thing and make sense. But in the second he came to the last 8 Psukim Sh'BeTora, he could not write Begilui Vayomer Shel Moshe, and he couldn't write the Ksiva through Yeshua, because Moshe wouldn't say, L'kayach HaSefer HaTorah Hazeh. לכך אומר שיוקויסף בדמה ופירוש דמה מלושן מלאוכו ודמעכו לא יעשה אחר פירוש לושן מדומו בערבוב אויסיס. The Goyen says not bedema means he writes with tears and yenafech takashe, it's not tint, it's not shachoimed al kashes. Moshe koisef bedema means Moshe went back, stopped the Torah right there, and from the words Vayomer Shel Moshe brought it back to the prehistory to 2,000 years ago, and it's all written gibberish. Kloimar meduma be'irvu v'oiseh shekoiseh mikan v'oelech al pi tziruf v'toives v'hem shmoisev shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'lo oyu klal nikro b'loshen vayomer shoyim Moshe rak oyu toives acheres al pi soides HaTorah. These words were written, when you came to the last 8 Psukim, they were written in gibberish, in all kind of shemos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which nobody could read. ולאחר מסוסוי כוספום ישוע כפי שניתנו לרשוס לגלויס התורה. Yeshua came after the P'tira, or rewritten today. We have a business class of Torah with no gibberish. We have the interpreted art scroll Torah, that it is already, you could read it, and all the Psukim are written just like the other Psukim. But who made it? B'shas Moshe Rabbeinu, right before he died, he finished b'mefarish the Torah. He made an ois soides HaTorah, ois tziruf ishmois shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He stopped by Yomos Moshe, and he wrote the last 8 Psukim gibberish. So now, since he wrote Nimtzos of the Goyen, sheshtei hashitei shnei adeli nechleku, ki be'emes Moshe kosav, v'lo yichoser afilu lo yisachas, rak sh'shmoine ha'psukim ha'elu lo yochel lichte v'sanigle, v'kosav kefi ha'tziruf v'zeu bedema. So the Goyen Moshe Rabbeinu stopped writing normal, and the last 8 Psukim he copied over the way the Torah was written in 2,000 years prior to Bris Olam. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu did. After Yeshua came, and Yeshua wrote this 8 Psukim b'Teiras Hanigel, not b'Teiras Hanistar. וישוע קוסמן כפי הנגלה, וכדעס רבי ישוע, ושניהם מסכימים לידי האחס, כי נכתבו על ידי שניהם, על ידי מוישה הנסתר והסויד, ועל ידי הישוע הנגלה, כאשר יקסו בידינו לדור ודור. So the Goyen that על ידי Yeshua was written כסו בידינו מדור לדור. Now the question is, when does Yehoshua do that? When does Yeshua do this interpretation of taking Seidas HaTorah, klapa this 8 Psukim, and make it into a Torah that we have written down today? The Torah was Sefer Sholem. When you took a Sefer Torah, Shekos Moshe Rabbeinu, right by the P'tira, you saw a Sefer Torah, you could read till then, you came to there, you start seeing all kind of Oisias, Tzirufim, Shemus, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with Seidas HaTorah. Betzalel could make heads and tails, but a regular naked eye of a normal person cannot do it. Shua was Kaisem Shmone Psukim shiur, and that's the halacha of Yochid Koiroi Oil Nishtanu. What's the pshat Oil Nishtanu? Yochid Koiroi. So we say like Rashi, like Teis, like the Rambam, the Ravid, whatever the pshat is. If you can split it to 2 people, or you could read it b'yichidus. And now the reason why is we have a full complete Torah. The Goyen is a Welts Chiddush, is a Welts Vort, is a Welts Chiddush. But now let's go back to what we are holding here in Sefer Yeshua. We got to finish. Vayichtov Yeshua es advorim ha'ele b'sefer Torah Selikim. Yeshua Binun, the Marsho comes along and says, Marsho comes along and says, that Moshe Rabbeinu, Yeshua added onto the Torah this Psukim of the Bris that he put it in, and everybody Shreich has v'kaim on the Marsho. What does it mean? Yeshua added the Sefer Torah. How could he put in insert? The Gemara comes along, he says, this is the Shmone Psukim Sh'BeTora. This is written when? Bishas P'tirosoi Shel Yeshua, which is how long? Torah was given over when Moshe was 80. Moshe would have been alive today. Moshe would be 148 because Yeshua Hinig is Yisrael Chof Ches Shonu. Okay, we know that. So this is 68 years after Moshe Rabbeinu's P'tira. So if the Gemara comes along and says Vayichtav Yeshua es advorim ha'ele b'sefer Torah Selikim, and Rashi brings down, the Gemara says Mai Kosav Shmone Psukim Sh'BeTora. So it comes out that the whole time from the P'tira of Moshe till it's there by the P'tira from Yeshua could not be Megala, the Seidas HaTorah, until the P'tira of Yeshua. And the entire 68 years we had a Sefer Torah with all the Psukim written in Kavayosam, only this Psukim were written gibberish, Seidas HaTorah. Yeshua, prior to him departing from the world, Vayichtav Yeshua es advorim ha'ele b'sefer Torah Selikim. That's why it's a Welts Chiddush to come along and say that the entire 68 years of from the Matan Torah till Yeshua, say Yeshua, aber steht doch the pasuk steht doch Vayichtav Yeshua es advorim ha'ele b'sefer Torah Selikim, und der man der Oma, and the Gemara in Makkah says that he wrote these Shmone Psukim Sh'BeTora then, not Vayichtav Yeshua. We're talking about prior to that. So Yeshua lived his whole life with Abi Megala, the Tzfunis and the Seidas HaTorah, and this is only happening after, right when Yeshua departs from this world.